Good evening and welcome to the October 8th, 2020 work session of the Prince George's County Board of Education. Before I begin, let me ask everyone to please turn off your wireless communication devices to avoid interfering with our meeting this evening. I want to remind the public that you may observe our meeting. The lines will be muted to avoid some background noise. The board meeting is being recorded. And the information from our proceedings will be available to the public on our board webpage. As chair of the board and on behalf of the board, I want to thank the public for its continued patience with the board as we present our meetings virtually. Hopefully we'll be able to return to in-person meetings as soon as possible. At this point, I'm going to ask my board colleagues, Mr. Valentine, to please lead us in the board's prayer and the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let us pray. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of our guidance, steer us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Amen.
Thank you. And we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the justice which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Valentine. At this point, Ms. Berkeley, would you please call the roll of the board?
Yes, sir. Good evening, board members and administration. Board members, can you please unmute your microphones? Mrs. Ahmed?
Here.
Ms. Boozer-Strother?
Here.
Mr. Burrows? Ms. Jackson?
Present.
Mr. Montero?
Here.
Mr. Murray? Mrs. Queen?
Present.
Mrs. Shepherd?
Here.
Mr. Swan?
Present.
Mr. Thomas?
Here.
Mr. Valentine?
Here.
Mr. Wallace?
I'm present.
Mrs. Williams?
Present.
Dr. Thornton?
Present.
Mr. Burrows?
Present.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Berkeley. We do have a quorum of the board, so we'll now proceed with our meeting. Colleagues, if you will turn your attention now to the agenda for our meeting, and I'll receive a motion and a second to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
It's been properly moved and seconded by Ms. Queen and Mr. Swan that the agenda for our October 8th meeting be adopted. Any discussion of the agenda? Seeing no discussion, those in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposing, no. Ms. King, let the record reflect that it's unanimous. Thank you, colleagues. Colleagues, if you will now turn your attention to the minutes of our September 17th, 2020 board meeting, and a motion and a second for discussion.
So moved.
It's been properly moved by Ms. Ahmed and
Second.
seconded by Mr. Swan that the minutes of September 17th be approved. Any discussion of the minutes? Hearing no discussion, those in favor of approving the minutes, please say aye.
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 Those opposing, no. Let the record reflect, Ms. King, that the approval of the minutes of September 17th is unanimous by the board. Colleagues, I have a brief moment of silence request for colleagues and members of our family who have passed since our last meeting. I'd ask you to please join me in a moment of silence for the individuals and their family. Mr. David Lawrence, who's the brother of our board colleague, Mr. Paul Montero. Mr. Raydale Timothy Dingle, who's the grandson of one of our board staff members, Ms. Charlotte Spencer. Carol Coates, who's a teacher, was a teacher at the Adelphi Elementary School. Deidre D. Walls, who's a secretary, was a secretary at the Special Education Support Program and Services Office. And finally, Jeffrey Jeff Wirt, who was a teacher at our Suitland High School. Colleagues, if you will now join me in a moment of silence. Thank you very much, colleagues. If I'd ask you to please keep these families in your thoughts and your prayers. To the public, please check our website for information about upcoming board meetings. The next virtual board meeting and the board's committees will take place on the following dates. Our Academic Achievement Committee, which is led by Ms. Shepherd and Mr. Montero, will meet on October 12th, beginning at 5:30. The Operations and Budget and Fiscal Affairs Committee, which is led by Ms. Williams and Ms. Queen, will meet on October the 13th, beginning at 6 p.m. And the next virtual meeting of our Board of Education will be on Wednesday, October 21st. The Zoom-in details for all of these meetings are posted on the Board of Education's website. We invite the public to please check and join us for any of those meetings. I'll now ask Dr. Golson, our Chief Executive Officer, to please give us her report. Dr. Golson.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening.
October is Principal Month. Thank you to all principals for your hard work and dedication to our school community. This year, more than ever, principals need our support as they face the challenges brought about by COVID-19 and to work to ensure that students receive a quality education through the new online platform process. Please take a moment to join me in thanking your school principal this month. I am proud to announce that Prince George's County Public Schools has a new online look. This week, we rolled out our new website. Over the next few months, you will see new school and office web pages, and we hope you find the new designs and structures aesthetic and user-friendly as you navigate through our site. Hispanic Heritage Month ends October 15th. We are proud to be one of the most diverse school districts in the state with nearly 45 of Hispanic heritage. This year's theme, Hispanic, Be Proud of Your Past, Embrace the Future, couldn't be more timely. Please visit our website for links to Hispanic Heritage Month sites and resources. Although we are currently using a distance learning model, the state still requires immunizations for school attendance. Please be sure your child's immunizations are up to date so you will be prepared with when school reopens. In partnership with the Prince George's Health Department and the Maryland Partnership for Prevention, we are hosting free immunization clinics in high school wellness centers for the months of October and November. Please visit our immunization webpage for details and to register online. On November 6th, we will host the annual Excellence in Education Foundation's Gala in virtual format. This event will feature a video award ceremony and online auction. More details will be shared soon, and I look forward to celebrating Prince George's County Public Schools' best and brightest. Lastly, as we begin to prepare for the fiscal year 2020 budget process, our current analysis reveals the possibility of a substantial budget gap. I'd like to take a few minutes to share the analysis thus far and what I propose we do to begin to offset future expenses and budget gaps for the next school year. When creating budgetary projections for the 2021-2021 school year, as of 2020, our CFO considered revenue and expenditure assumptions in those projections. Many of these assumptions will change over the next 9 months before the Board of Education passes the FY fiscal year 2022 operating budget, but this is what we considered thus far. For revenue assumptions, there'll be no state aid changes. We believe there'll be a continuation of transportation aid, no Kerwin extension or expansion, but this is one area that I hope we'll be able to reverse once the legislative session in January. We have had an enrollment decrease of approximately 1,700 students, and county funding will probably just be at the main effort level, and we anticipate that there'll be no change in federal funding. We also made a decision to consider our figures that we would be in full in-person learning for next school year when creating our projections. Based on those revenue assumptions, we also know that there'll be a few expenditure assumptions. That is, that we'll continue to have to pay the increases per the negotiated agreements we already signed and the contracts that we must finalize for fiscal year 2022. In addition, we expect to have an increase in healthcare and prescription costs. Based on those high-level projections, we anticipate a loss of approximately $94.7 million due to a decrease in enrollment and Kerwin revenue, along with projected employee compensation increases that total approximately $75.7 million. Those two added together create a $100.5 million preliminary budget gap for next school year. In an effort to begin to address the substantial gap, we will have to implement for next school year 3 strategies. These three strategies we'll use this school year to help us with next school year. The first one is to freeze all overtime costs unless approved for emergency situations by the appropriate chief and CFO. The second measure for savings is to place us all on a hiring freeze until on all positions there are vacancies filled in our schools to ensure that our students are not impacted. And the third area of the savings is a reduction of school-based funds by 10%. Some of the expenses schools would have had to incur are now deferred due to our virtual learning mode and the use of CARES Act funds to provide technology support. Therefore, not all of the resources anticipated for purchase during the first semester are needed. Through the use of these 3 areas, we believe that we will be able to save approximately $54.8 million, which will allow us to provide funds to make early lease payments to alleviate funds for next school year and the year after that and to address anticipated budget deficits. While I know that none of us want to experience a reduction in financial support in our school system, it would not be fiscally responsible of me not to begin to plan for what we believe is the inevitable. As we move through the development process of the creation of our fiscal year 2022 budget, I will continue to keep you, our employees, and our community apprised of where we are and what we need to do to ensure that our students are not directly impacted by the difficult budget decisions that lie ahead. Thank you for your attention. Happy belated birthday to our chair of the board, Dr. Thornton, and this concludes my report.
Thank you, Dr. Gostin, for that. And Dr. Gostin, I would ask each board member, individual board member, with that preliminary outline to reach out to you in their own individual way. The OBAFA committee, our budget committee, led by Ms. Williams and Ms. Queen, will take a deep dive in this on behalf of the board. So we'll have individual interfacing with your staff, Dr. Gostin, from board members. Our committee will, starting on next Tuesday, actually, led by Ms. Williams and Ms. Queen, will take a deep dive into this and continue to work with you. But thank you for your advanced thinking and advising the public of the challenges that we're going to face, because we're going to need everybody on board together as we deal with the projected more than $100 million cut to the support that we have for our children. I want to remind the public that we are still receiving public comment from you, and thanks to those who are taking the time to interface with the board to send us your comments, both written as well as video. Please continue to do so. At this point, colleagues, we will move to our consent agenda. And I'm going to ask Dr. Gostin if she would please introduce items 4.1, 4.2, and 4.4. I'm pulling 4.3 for the consideration in a different way. Dr. Gostin, please proceed.
Yes. Items 4.1, 4.2, and 4.4 requires board approval of an easement and right-of-way for work at Thomas Johnson Middle School and Bonnie Johns Education Media Center, and a resolution rescheduling second reader for request to extend the charter school agreements.
Thank you. Colleagues, a motion is in order in reference to items 4.1, 4.2, and 4.4.
So moved.
Yeah. Ms. Queen
So
moves,
moved.
and who seconds it? Please raise your hand, Ms. Estrella. Is there a discussion or question regarding those three items? Seeing none, those in favor, please say aye. Ms. Queen, I'm sorry. Ms. Queen.
Yes, I'm sorry. Dr. Golson, after this is done, who oversees to make sure that the grounds and everything is put back? One of the problems I have in the county within our community is when WSSC or PEPCO or somebody do work, the people who they have pave it or they have to do stuff, or we have other issues. In the school system, do we have someone who's going to oversee once we give them the right of way to make sure whether it's a grass or whatever piece of property, but everything is back and even better than the way it was?
We do have a point of contact for the easement, so our staff goes back after the work has been done to make sure that it is in compliance and it hasn't been left
Thank you.
appropriately for and still remain safe for our students.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Queen. Colleagues, any other questions regarding 4.1, 4.2, and 4.4? If not, those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposing, no. Ms. Queen, let the record reflect that it's unanimous. I will now call on our colleague, Ms. Booz Estrella, to introduce item 4.3 on behalf of the Policy and Governance Committee. Ms. Booz Estrella.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Thornton. I am very proud to introduce this resolution in support of the override of the governor's 2020 veto of the blueprint for Maryland's future legislation. I would like to recognize the Policy and Governance Committee members that we convened on September 24th to discuss this resolution. Vice Chair Ahmed, members Mr. Thomas, Ms. Jackson, and Mr. Murray. And the discussion, we thank you, Chair Thornton, for your leadership on the blueprint and for this board's commitment to continued advocacy for the governor's override. Our discussion focused on this upcoming legislative session and the work that our board must continue to do along with our legislators in Prince George's County on this veto override. I'd like to state that Dr. Goldson's presentation about the fiscal 22 budget directly related to this legislation, the funding, and the community's concern and expectations of this board around the work we're doing with community schools, with mental health services, counseling, other priorities of the community are tied to that funding. And it's critical for everyone to continue their advocacy. So with that, I would like to say that the committee voted unanimously to recommend to the full board that it approve the attached resolution in support of the override of the governor's 2020 veto of the blueprint for Maryland's future legislation.
Thank you, Ms. Booz Estrella, and to the committee members. Colleagues, is there any discussion of the committee's proposal? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Berkeley, would you, those in favor of passing the committee's recommendation, please say aye.
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 Those opposing, please say no. Seeing no opposition, Ms. King, let the record reflect that the vote of the board is unanimous. And I really want to thank the committee for thinking of it in this way and positioning the board to make this statement to the public. We'll now move, colleagues, to item 5.0, which is the budget consent agenda. Dr. Golson, would you please introduce item 5.1?
Sure. Item 5.1 requires board approval of a change order for the HVAC upgrade project at Central High School.
Colleagues, may I have a motion for discussion to approve item 5.1?
So moved.
It's been moved by Ms. Williams and seconded by Ms. Queen. Is there a discussion or question regarding Ms. Ahmed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, on June 20th, 2019, this board approved this HVAC contract with Oak Contracting for a guaranteed maximum price of $25 million and some change. Now what's before us with this item is that administration is requesting a change order for $5 million more over that guaranteed maximum price. And to me, this is very concerning because a guaranteed maximum price is a guaranteed maximum price, and there should be no change order on this kind of contract. The way I see it, if we want to do more work at Central, then the work needs to be competitively bid out and not added on to this project. And so that's why I'm not going to be voting for it today. And I urge you all to take into consideration this point that I have mentioned before you cast your vote as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Met. Dr. Golson, would you please
Yeah, I
comment?
just want to clarify that this change order is actually based on input from community about additional items that we would have done to Central High School while we were also working on HVAC. I want to say Board Member Queen did good community outreach, has met with the community multiple times, and then provided a list of items that could be worked on while removing students for HVAC. And this is why this is here. It's not for a continuation of change order for HVAC.
Thank you, Dr. Golson, for the clarification. Seeing no other comments, colleagues, those in favor of approving item 5.1, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposing, please say no.
No.
And Ms. King, let the record reflect that all board members, with the exception of Ms. Ahmed, approves 5.1. Thank you very much. And thank you, Ms. Ahmed, for your question, and Dr. Golson for the clarification. Colleagues, we'll now move to, there are no non-consent agenda items. We'll now move to agenda item 7.0. Dr. Golson, would you please introduce item 7.1?
Item 7.1 requires board approval of the comprehensive maintenance plan.
Colleagues, may I have a motion for discussion to approve the FY21 comprehensive maintenance plan?
Second.
It's moved by Mrs. Queen and seconded by Mr. Valentine that the board approves the FY21 comprehensive maintenance plan. Any questions about the recommendation? Ms. Ahmed?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dr. Golson, I just had a couple of questions about this plan. I know we've seen it year after year. I was just wondering if there were a few key points that you could mention about how has this plan changed this year as opposed to last year?
So each year we update the projects once they've been completed. And then as you'll see from one year to the next, a rolling up of projects so that people can see a progression. We try our very best to do is adhere to this list so that there's complete transparency and they can know that what they see here, where they are listed on a specific school is listed on the list, they can look forward for subsequent years to follow. So you won't actual changes unless it is completion of every project and other projects moved up.
Okay, and then in the report as well, y'all spoke to some success of the preventative maintenance software and some like increased goals. So could y'all just convey kind of how that has been going, use of that software, and how it has improved efficiency in that department?
Yeah, prior to COVID-19, it provided us an electronic platform to begin to track all of our work. Moving from paper to electronic allows us to sort by school, data completion, when a project is opened, we went to that project, if they left and had to order a part, how long it's for that part to come in. Honestly, the pandemic has helped to change a lot of processes that are now used to be paper into electronic, but this was a process we had started already. The reason I bring up the pandemic is because obviously that slowed down substantially once we left in the middle of March, shelter at home, and then reconvene back to bringing staff in, which is now we have approximately 27% of all of our employees back on the workforce daily.
Okay, and then my last question here is, when it comes to the maintenance department, what are some of the biggest challenges that are being faced right now, given everything that's happening?
Honestly, we just discussed this with our labor partners. The biggest challenge is making sure that our employees remain COVID-free.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Ahmed. Any Ms. Queen? Ms.
Yes,
Queen?
yes, thank you. Dr. Golson, I just have one question. Dealing with a lot of the maintenance because of the changes with the school system and even with the kids going back, I'm really concerned with our water fountains. A lot of them had maintenance issues already. Are we updating or changing our water fountains to make sure that the kids, when they do come back, will not be drinking out of it? I think that's very important during COVID. And I received a call from my sister today. Actually, my brother-in-law owns Field Plumbing, and DC public schools have hired them to change all of their water fountains to make sure the kids are getting cups. So I'm wondering, what are we doing to make sure that the kids are not putting their mouth or drinking out the water fountains when they go back for their safety?
So
As far
first,
as
thank you for that question. First, let me remind everyone that we have placed bottled water fillers in all of our schools. That completed well before we left out on the pandemic. Actually, that was the school year before last. So our students were able to utilize those last school year before they left out in March. The second part of it is that we do flush our systems every Monday. It's part of now check recommended through some of the actions from CDC. Upon our return, what we do plan to do though is to cut off all water fountains with the exception of the bottled water fillers, and we'll be providing bottled water.
Thank you, Ms. Queen.
Thank
Okay, colleagues, I don't see any other questions from board members. So those in favor of approval of the comprehensive maintenance plan, please say aye.
Aye.
And those opposing, please say no. The ayes have it. Ms. King, let the record reflect that the vote of the board is unanimous. Colleagues, we'll now move to item 8.0, which is new business first reader. I would ask Ms. Boozer-Strother to please introduce items 8.1 and 8.2 from the Policy and Governance Committee.
Thank you so much, Chair Thornton. So the first policy here is Policy 5115, Student Appeals of Disciplinary Action, is to describe the options available to a student who wishes to appeal the decision of the Chief Executive Officer or designee regarding the student's extended suspension or expulsion from school. And I'll remind the public that these policies are in board docs for full review. As a reminder, the board did review the first draft of this policy that then went to the next step of public comment. Those comments were due back on September 1st, and the committee met on September 24th to review those comments and this draft. And during this meeting, the committee considered and discussed the attached policy and the public comments received. However, no further changes to the policy were recommended. So the committee voted unanimously to recommend to the full board that approve revised policy 5115, student appeals of disciplinary action.
Thank you, Ms. Boozer-Strother. And I want to say, before the board votes on this, how appreciative we are of the work of the committee in moving these two policies forward, particularly the work of Mr. Wallace regarding policy 5210, which is the systemic meal shaming practices. Mr. Wallace brought this to our attention long before COVID-19 in terms of the systematic meal shaming activities. And Mr. Wallace, if you want to make a comment, you may, otherwise I'll proceed to the vote. Thank you, sir. Colleagues, the vote is on a first reader to move these to the second reader. Those in favor, please say aye. Those opposing, no.
No.
I don't see any opposition, Ms. King. So let the record reflect that the board approves these two items, 8.1 and 8.2 as first reader. Thank you. Colleagues will know. Yes, Ms. Queen.
I didn't see my hand, but I was trying to ask a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Please.
I'm sorry, I'm just with 8.2, Dr. Gosen, how does that affect the fact that meals have been approved through the federal government through next year, September?
So actually this policy will have to, now that the board policy has approved, we'll go back and make revisions to our administrative procedure. But to make sure that it's aligned to the board policy, but it won't in terms of the provisions around the current USDA requirement. We still need our families to complete the free and reduced meals applications now because we still will need all of the benefits that come from it. And if they enroll now, they can continue to get that free meal until October 30th of next year if they're identified, even after these funds conclude. But
Thank
you
you.
will get, no, thank you for that, so that we could remind our families. But you will get the draft administrative procedure from now, this approved policy, once we've reworked it.
Thank you. I appreciate you for saying that because I remember one of my schools lost benefits because parents wasn't filling out because they were getting free lunch for so long. But it's very important that they realize if they fill that form out, they would stay in certain statuses. So it's very important, even though you may be getting free lunch or you may be on it, it's important every year that they fill it out. So I just wanted to make sure that everyone knows that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Queen. Ms. Jackson.
Dr. Golson, could you reiterate or share with us, I guess, the deadline or cutoff for forms applications?
Yes, it is the last day in October, so October 30th. So we need people to complete it. Students who are in high school, it's important because many times you can get your college applications waived and your SAT, ACT fees reduced if you decide to take it, even though universities aren't accepting it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Busenstrom.
Yeah, and just a final comment on that point around the percentages of free reduced meal students, that once again, this gets us back to the blueprint for Maryland's future, that the high concentration of poverty school grants are tied to these percentages in each school. So again, much of what we discuss at these board meetings is related to funding. So thank you.
Thank you, colleague, for that, and for staying on top of the blueprint as our representative to the Legislative Committee of Maine. We really appreciate that. Seeing no other questions about that, we've already voted, and I did that before Ms. Queen had a chance to ask the question. Colleagues, let me say, as we begin to come to the end of our meeting, I want to thank each of you. I've seen the various activities in which you have been engaged related to voting and get out the vote for the election. So thank each of you for all you're doing in your individual ways to remind the people of the importance of voting, facilitating information to the public about voting. So as individual board members, thank you for all you're doing. I also particularly want to thank the board members who are doing great work regarding the census. I want to express appreciation to all of you because the money that we're talking about, whether it's for our kids or our schools or whatever, it's a function of what being counted. And we're always undercounted, as you know, by at least 10% or even more, resulting in millions of dollars not coming into our school system. At this point, we're still under our target as a county. So if we don't change something, it's a very short period of time now, then we're going to lose millions of dollars for our kids. So thank you for the footprint that you have in that space. And I also want to express appreciation to each of you in terms of what you're doing to facilitate food distribution. We just talked about that, but I see you out and about and helping to distribute food. So thank you for your response to the community. Colleagues, I want to say to the public now that we have follow-up items from board meeting of September 17th, which will be posted upon receipt and available to you on board docs. And at this point, I would ask for a motion to approve action taken in the executive session. To the public, we dealt with we received a report from our CEO in the executive session. We discussed personnel matters and we discussed an investigative matter involving one of our schools. A motion to approve actions in executive session is in order.
So moved.
Been approved, moved by Ms. Queen and seconded by Ms. Williams. Second. Williams to approve actions taken in executive session. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposing, no. Let the record reflect that Ms. King, that is unanimous on the part of the Board of Education. I will now, colleagues, entertain a motion to adjourn our meeting. That motion is in order.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. It's been properly moved by Mr. Valentine, second by Mr. Swan, that the board adjourn its meeting of October the 8th. Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those opposing, no. The ayes have it. Thank you, colleagues. Be safe. Mask on from a distance. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Happy birthday again.
Thank you. Thank you.